We are celebrating summer by bringing you the top 10 40 Thrive episodes of all time. This week, number 9.
You're listening to the 40 Thrive Podcast, the show created for women 40 and beyond, ready to shake things up. And now, your host, Jackie McDougall.
Welcome back to another episode of the 40 Thrive Podcast. If you're looking to feel your absolute best without beating yourself up over being perfect, this is the episode for you. I'm talking with Courtney Townley, wellness expert and host of the Grace and Grit podcast, who you may remember from episode 7. If you haven't heard that one, be sure to check it out at 40thrive.com/episode 7. It was packed with a lot of great tips, advice, and just gems that we can take with us every day. I got some great feedback on that episode, so if you haven't checked it out, head on over and listen to that one after this. What I love about Courtney is how she's evolved her business and her message into so much more than nutrition and exercise. Courtney takes such a gentle, holistic approach. She is the go-to expert, whether you're at the beginning of your new health journey or you're looking to up your game a bit and you've been doing this for a while. Courtney focuses just as much on mental health as she does on the physical, which I have to tell you is a bit ironic. As I was recording this episode with Courtney last week, little did I know I had a pipe burst in my house causing over $20,000 in damage. Seriously, it was all happening, and I was completely clueless, chatting with Courtney in my home office on the other side of absolute chaos. I am so lucky I could go back and listen to this episode to help me work through the feelings and not create additional stress. So the short story is, if this episode can help me during this craziness, I know it can help you too. Plus, Courtney shares information on an incredible program she's offering that you will definitely want to hear more about. Okay, quick reminder before I get into it. I invite you to subscribe to the 40 Thrive podcast if you haven't already. It's as simple as hitting that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. Or if you're listening from the 40 Thrive website, there are subscribe buttons right at the bottom of the page. Easy breezy. All right, so let's do this. Here's my chat with Courtney Townley. Courtney, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I always love spending time with you.
I should rephrase that. Welcome back to the podcast.
That's right.
Because you're a two-timer. If you want to hear Courtney's full story, go back to 40thrive.com/episode 7. But can you give people just a little bit of your philosophy on wellness, specifically diet and exercise?
Yeah. So first of all, I always tell people that what I do for a living is I help women to take better care of themselves with more consistency and ease. And that is not an exercise in writing out a bunch of rules and regulations. It's really an exercise in helping a woman to better understand how she behaves in the world and why she behaves that way. And that is not always super fun work. It's definitely not fast work. And it is really a practice of self-leadership. I know for me, in my 20s and even my 30s, I was really looking to outside experts to help me manage my life, right? I was almost like I expected someone else to understand my body better than I did. And when I crossed the threshold into my 40s, it was really just, and it was a process. It was over many years, but ultimately I came into a space where I was like, hang on a second. Like, I am the only person who's ever really going to know what is the next healthy choice for me. And also, what is the intention behind the choice? Because I know women who eat well as an exercise of self-abuse, and I know women who eat well out of an exercise of self-love. But I cannot tell you exactly why each woman is making the decisions she's making. Only she really knows that. And so I feel like the way that I practice now as a coach and the way I even handle my own health, it's just so much more mature because it's really allowing myself to take responsibility for my health and do a lot of introspection into how I move through the world and help my clients do the same. So I help them to turn inward rather than constantly look outward.
Right. And so what I'm hearing you say is that it's not even necessarily the act of nutrition and exercise, but the internal factors that lead you to those acts.
100%. And I know almost every woman can relate to this.
Yeah.
That for years, it was really like, just tell me what to do. Like, give me the meal plan, give me the exercise plan to follow. And, to do that for somebody is really easy, but not helpful in the long run. And the reason is, I tell my clients this all the time. I can give you a meal plan. I can tell you exactly what to do for exercise. I can tell you how much sleep to get. I can do all those things. But at the end of the day, you're not going to show up to do them necessarily because of the way that you're thinking. And so mindset is huge.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we might follow someone else's meal plan or exercise program for a while, and sometimes that can be helpful, but it is by no means a way to sustain taking care of yourself over the course of your life, because you'll get tired of eating that way. Life evolves. You're a part of nature, and we know that one of the basic tenets of nature is that it's always changing. So if you're always changing, but your ways of caring for yourself are not changing, that creates a lot of conflict.
Absolutely. I mean, what we're doing in our 40s, 50s, 60s does not look anything like what most of us were doing in our 20s and 30s.
Nor should it.
Going to the gym and doing step aerobics and all of that, that was fun, back then. But now it's just, at least for me, I want to incorporate nutrition and movement into my everyday life without it being like, oh, I hate this, and where it's torture. And so somehow you are able to deliver this information in a way that I've seen it firsthand in your group and listeners to your podcast. You have people going like, yes, I want to do that. I want to do the work. How do you do? What is the sorcery that you have people actually wanting to do the work, Courtney?
Yeah. You know what it is? It's tapping into the pain point that women are just so tired of the spin cycle of chasing these diet programs or exercise programs that require super intense measures in short time frames that might work if they work at all, but they're definitely not sustainable. So they have to do it over and over and over again. And they sign up for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And really, if it was working, they would never have to sign up for anything else again. And so I think when I first started out in having this conversation, it was very uncomfortable because I felt like nobody was having it. It was like I was the fish swimming upstream against the diet culture. And I still feel that way. I always joke that if I just sold cookie cutter programs, I could make a lot more money, but I couldn't sleep at night if I did that. Right. And I do think more and more people are starting to have this awareness that constantly looking for outside perspective on how to take control of our own life is not really the pathway. We have to go in and get to know ourselves and start making some decisions about what the next best decision is based on what we know. And that requires getting into the arena with experimentation. And nobody likes that because people want to know, if I'm going to apply the effort, I want to know that I'm going to lose X number of pounds by the end of this week.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, but if we do that, at some point, your inner toddler is going to push against all this stuff that I'm telling you you have to do to accomplish that. Right. So if we were a little bit more willing to go slow and steady and get to know ourselves and drop the freaking timelines and realize that health is not a finish line to cross, it is a lifelong practice. And every day we just kind of have to recommit and realign ourselves to the practice. And that's really what I teach women. And I think I am able to get women on board with that because they realize, if they're self-aware enough, that what they've been doing isn't working. It's really never worked, but it's what our diet industry sells. And so they keep buying into it because we have been conditioned to buy into it.
Right. But, one of the things I love, though, about your teaching, first of all, is you spell it out like it requires work. But it's not 24/7. You live a nice life. You enjoy yourself. You may have a drink here and there, or, get the dessert or whatever it is. And you don't lead people with this, you have to change everything and be a size 2. you really look at it as a holistic approach. Has that always been the case for you?
No way. I wish I could say absolutely, but Lord, no, not just in my own journey, but even in the way that I've taught, I have evolved so much over the years. I mean, there was a time where I was I wrote out every detail of a woman's plan, and it worked really well for fat loss. But the problem is it cost them their mental health, because it wasn't really in line with what they wanted for their life in terms of the other things that are important in their life. They felt like they had to sacrifice too much. And ultimately, it wasn't sustainable, because who wants to food journal down to calories and macros for the rest of their life?
Right.
I
Not
didn't.
me.
So why would my clients?
Right.
But because when I was younger, that was a pathway that, when I thought aesthetics were everything, because I thought aesthetics defined health. And of course, now I'm a little bit more knowledgeable, and I realize that health comes in every age, at every age and size, right? But so does illness. Illness is at every age and size. And so we can't look at somebody, and just because they have six-pack abs does not mean that they are healthy. Right. And I was one of those people that I thought just your degree of body fat, your percentage of body fat defined how healthy you were.
Right.
Until I realized, and this was after I had my son, I was 34, 35, and I was just bowled over as a new mother. And my body was not bouncing back in the way that I expected it to. And I just realized that my priorities had shifted, and I didn't want to spend all day in the gym or all day prepping my food. And so how could I still be in an amazing state of health and be present for the other areas of my life that also mattered? And that's really where I think my definition of health started to expand. And then, of course, I just started to pursue so much other education to really better understand behavior change and what's really required to change behavior. It has been a very big learning process for me, which is why I teach it, because I've been there.
Right. And I've seen you, even just in the couple of years that we've known each other, it's been quite a twisty little journey as far as, what you put out there and how you've grown. And I love watching that. I think that I can't speak for all women over 40, but I see it every day where women 40s, 50s, 60s, we start to look, I'll talk about my own journey. I start to look as like, I'd like to be healthy for as long as I can. I know that, it's not sexy to talk about falling and breaking a hip and stuff like that, but, balance and strength training and osteoporosis, I had a hysterectomy at 35. So there are things, bone loss, it's exercise is so much more than just trying to look great in a bikini. Like, listen, I didn't look great in a bikini at 25. I'm not concerned about that. But I use nutrition and exercise as a way to not only lengthen my life, but give me better quality of life while I'm here.
Yeah, it gives you more life while you're living it. Right? Because you have the energy that you need, and your mindset totally shifts through exercise. We know that, like, it directly affects our brain health. And so I agree with you. I think it's so important to think of all the reasons why you're pursuing better health, because unfortunately, the diet culture, the media has largely kind of conditioned us to believe that it's a pursuit of aesthetics. And that honestly has just cost us so much mental health. And I think for a lot of women over the age of 40, we start to realize that mental health is just as important, if not more so, than physical health.
Well, this is a perfect segue, because I was just about to say to you that you're not just teaching the fitness and the nutrition anymore. You're really looking at this in that way. And you did a whole, I know it was back in May, but you did a whole month, right? On mental health.
Modern day mental health. Yeah.
Yes. And I love the way you theme your podcast every month, and you provide, downloadable content and all that great stuff. But you really look at a woman, I'm sure there are plenty of men who follow you as well, but I'm going to speak for the women. You really provide a 360-degree look at our lives and how movement and nutrition and wellness enter. How did you start to move in that direction?
Well, I think it was twofold. I think largely because of my work with clients over the past, 10, 15 years, I just kept seeing a common thread that, at the end of the day, it's really not the exercise and nutrition that's changing these women's lives. It's the way they're thinking about these things, the way they're thinking about themselves, right? That they're pursuing health out of self-respect now rather than self-hate. Like there's a very big difference there. And as I started to see their mindset shift, everything got so much easier. Like it wasn't such a struggle. And in my own life, I'm someone who's been in the fitness and wellness industry for 20 plus years. And I got to a point in my life, specifically my late 30s, where physically I'm conditioned, not to say that it's not always a work in progress, but I'm fit. Mm-hmm. I'm fit. I have the basic tenets. Like I practice them all the time as in terms of getting enough sleep and drinking enough water and, eating good food. But I had a lot of mental health challenges in terms of just a lot of rumbling with my emotions. I had no skills to manage my emotions. I had no skills for managing my thinking. And as I started to reach out for help in those arenas, I started to really see how this was the same type of thing I was seeing in my clients, right? That part of the reason women reach for food and alcohol is because they're not managing thoughts and emotions, right? And part of the reason we don't exercise is because of the way we're thinking about exercise. Mm-hmm. So as I started to go through a healing process of really learning how to better manage my own mental landscape, it just gave further validation for what I was seeing with my own client base. And it just, as much as I love fitness and nutrition, I've studied it my entire life. I really, at this age and stage of my life, and with all the experience that I've had over the years, truly believe that at the root of most health challenges in terms of, being able to be consistent with these behaviors that we know are health promoting is the way that a woman is thinking and her capacity to manage her emotions. And to me, that is all an exercise in self-leadership.
I love how you use, self-leadership, because how many of us are out there leading others, whether it's at work or families or whatever. But, when it comes to self-leadership, it's like it all just falls to the wayside, So I love that you use self-leadership, because if we're not managing these thoughts and feelings, and I, first of all, have a lot of respect for you putting yourself out there and your challenges out there and what you were going through, because I think it makes you more relatable and it helps your clients understand that you're not on this pedestal and just teaching them because you're perfect, but that you've been through some of these things and that you've been through these challenges and you can understand it. But I think for anyone, I haven't studied fitness or nutrition for 5 minutes, really, but I know for myself, I am never in great shape when I'm beating myself up about it, when I'm not processing things that are happening in my life and just trying to shove them down. When I'm feeling anxiety and my energy is like way up and I have a glass of wine to bring it back down, then I'm down. And then the next day I'm up, and it becomes this vicious cycle of trying to manage and be in the middle when there are other ways to cope, believe it or not, And so I think that it's really important to have these conversations about how to cope with things that happen in life and how to process emotions and how to actually feel them. Because I think in some ways we've been telling women to be strong and be this and be that, and you're amazing and you're unstoppable and you're fearless. And we haven't been able to connect over, go ahead and feel that shit.
It's true. Like we live in this culture that's just like, oh, be happy all the time, right? Just love yourself. Just
post an inspirational quote and you'll be good.
And so when we feel less than happy or less than in love with ourselves, we really judge ourselves because we're feeling like something's wrong with us. And really, I think most people know this on a deep level if they really go in. That negative emotion, I don't even want to call it negative emotion, but the more difficult emotions to feel are a part of the human experience. If we did not feel the lows, we would not know the highs, right? And so if we can start learning how to feel difficult emotion and process it, just like we process happiness and excitement and the rest of it, we'd probably be a lot less likely to distract and numb and reach for these things that are kind of false pleasures. The Facebook scrolling, the shopping, the self-loathing, the people-pleasing, the food, the alcohol, the Netflix.
Don't bring my Netflix into this. Come on.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm a Netflix. I love it too. So, I really believe that at the root of physical health is our mental health. The way we think about health, the way that we think about our relationship with exercise, with food, the way we think about our self-respect. If we grant ourselves unconditional love, most people I know love themselves very conditionally, right? They only love themselves if they're doing certain things. That's not love, right? Like, what if you only loved your kid if they came home with straight A's? Like, that's not love.
Right.
And so I think when we start looking at physical health through the lens of mental health, it changes everything. And it makes it so much more enjoyable and gentle and nourishing, where sometimes I just feel like women can go at physical health in such an abusive and destructive way. And the diet industry is proof of that.
Oh, yeah. And the diet industry is counting on that.
Of course. Like your failure is making them more money.
Allowing women and talking about it, first of all, but allowing women to not only feel what they feel in the moment, but just acknowledge that you feel it and move on. It's kind of like when you're meditating and they say, if you have a thought, don't just like get mad at yourself that you had a thought, just have the thought and let it go. And so I think if we are feeling these things in our lives, to not beat ourselves up, because that's the worst when you're like, I'm feeling this, whatever the insert negative emotion here. And now I'm beating myself up because I'm feeling the negative emotion. And then it's just torture.
It's worse. You're making like a difficult emotion even more difficult because of the way you're trying to deal with it.
Exactly. So let's talk about what you're doing now. So if you really look at life, I think you've nailed something. If you look at life, whether it's fitness and nutrition, work, any goal that you want to set, what do we know is the number one way to get there? Consistency.
100%. Yep.
So let's talk about the consistency code you have coming up.
Yeah. So consistency code is really like my program. Like that's like the main program I encourage people to take with me. And the reason being is that, the diet industry again has indoctrinated us to believe that if we fail using one methodology, because we take a misstep, we don't do it perfectly, that we should sign up for something else, right? Or we have to start over. And I don't believe that at all. And you brought up this example of meditation, which I love because I talk about this a lot with my clients. Meditation is a practice of giving yourself permission to begin again. And sometimes in one 10-minute meditation, you will begin again 45 times.
Right. Word proof right here.
Meditation teaches us the grace of just beginning again. Don't get caught up in the drama that you did it wrong. You don't have to make a big storyline about it. Just begin again. And that's kind of how I feel about the health journey, is if we just need to grant ourselves the permission to begin again. And I wouldn't even say it's like starting over. It's just a practice of realigning. And I teach these 5 tenets, okay? The 5 tenets are basically, we need to honor sleep, recovery for the human body. And there's lots of reasons for that. We need to honor that our body needs a lot of nutrition in order to function properly. We need to honor the fact that our mind requires management, right? If we don't manage our mind, it's like a toddler running around with scissors. It's not going to end well, okay? We need to honor our need for hydration. And we need to honor our need for movement. These are the basic tenets that I kind of always come back to with my clients. I call them the basics. And if you think of anyone who has mastered anything in their life, any kind of skill, like think of an athlete. Athletes master their sport because they have repeated the basics hundreds of thousands of times. And it might look to us like they're now doing really complex things, but those complex patterns are built on basic skill sets.
Right.
And this is what I really encourage women to think about, like in terms of their health journey. I see women gravitating towards, keto and intermittent fasting and all of these, and I'm not saying none of those have a time and place, but unless you're doing the basics on a regular basis, I feel like it is too extreme of a measure for people to really sustain over the long term. If they were just consistent with the basics, they would likely create a lot of outstanding results in their life. So how do we learn how to become consistent with the basics? And I teach this in 4 parts. And the first thing is the practice of awareness. And everything is a practice, by the way, because the diet industry kind of teaches you, again, that health is a finish line, that it's just like a temporary commitment and then you're going to arrive.
Right.
And I teach people that no. This is a lifelong practice. It is work you will commit to every single day for the rest of your life. So we better freaking enjoy it. Okay? Because that's a long-term commitment. It's like your marriage, right? It's for life. And so you better pick the right guy. And I also want to say here, I discern between superficial health and deep health. Superficial health to me is just creating a big result in a short time frame that you can't sustain. Because to me, that's in many cases, it's not even healthy because of what you had to sacrifice in order to achieve it. That's superficial health. Deep health is really the work of going in to decide what the next right step for you is. It's a practice of developing that self-leadership, right? To create these results that you can mostly sustain the rest of your life because you have a practice that you're engaging with every day.
Right.
So we develop a practice of self-awareness to see where the gaps are in our life. Like, where are the places we're falling short? And this is not an exercise in self-judgment, by the way, which a lot of women will use it as. It's a judgment in curiosity and getting to know yourself better. We're not perfect. No human is perfect. I know we'd all like to be perfect, but if someone tells you they're perfect, come on, that's weird.
Yeah. And the expectation, though, that we put on ourselves to be perfect is bizarre.
It's bizarre. And you know what makes us so fascinating and beautiful is our imperfection. It really is. Like, I love people that are just messy and have fascinating life stories and have just had some really juicy journeys. And if they were perfect to me is just synonymous with boring.
Right. But also those people who are imperfect, but they own it. Like, that's my favorite.
Totally.
That they're just like, yep, this is what you got.
Yeah.
So when you talk about every day, right?
Yes.
When you say, oh, this is a practice for every day, I can hear my listeners like, what? I have to do it every day. But you just mean the way you live. It doesn't mean that you have to eat perfectly and exercise every day and be lifting up the weights. And, so I just want to spell that out. When we talk about every day, you don't exercise every day, do you?
No. And my self-care doesn't always look the same. There are times of the year where I will show up to the gym every morning at 5 a.m. And there's periods of my year where I honestly will be lucky if I show up at the gym. But here's the thing is I also am very honest with myself about my total stress load. So am I not going to the gym and eating crappy and not getting sleep and not drinking water and not managing my mind? Never. Because I know the danger of that. Like, I don't do all of those things simultaneously. But there are times when, the gym might be falling a little bit short, but then I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to my food. Right? Or I'm not really doing that great with my diet because I just have a lot of things going on in my life right now. It's just not my focus, but you can bet I'm going to protect my sleep. So I'm always managing my total stress load. And when I say total stress load, I want the audience to hear that stress comes into your life from so many different places. It's not just mental stress. Not eating nutrient-dense food is stressful on the human body. Not moving your body is stressful on the human body. Not sleeping enough, super stressful. And when we're pollinating our life with stress from all of these places and not managing any of it, that's when our total stress load becomes so big that we start breaking down. And we start getting really, and we say to ourselves, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I started gaining weight. And all of a sudden I started getting these headaches or joint aches. And it's like, you might be feeling the symptoms all of a sudden, but that stuff has been developing for years because of your inability or unwillingness to manage the stress in your life.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So your first step then is awareness, and awareness of what you're doing and what you're not doing. I mean, I am a full believer in when I sometimes I don't go to the gym because I'm like, I'm going to take a day off and rest my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't go to the gym because oh, it got so late getting the kids out the door. I didn't make it in time. And I could have made it. So like being aware of why and when I'm not going to the gym.
Sometimes the intention behind not doing the thing is really stinking healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not healthy and you are the only person who knows why you're doing something. So I can go teach like a fitness class and half the class could be in there for unhealthy reasons. And the other half of the class could be there for all the right healthy reasons.
Yeah.
And I have no idea. Right? And this is why I say that nobody from the outside can really tell you if you're healthy or not because you don't know your motives or your intentions. It's about you getting straight with you. And this is why I always say too, of course, the name of my business is Grace and Grit. I cannot tell you if you need more grace or more grit. Do I need a little more grace here or do I need a little more grit? And to use brutal honesty with yourself to make that decision.
I love that. So after we are aware of all the things, what happens next?
Then once we're aware, we can start to kind of develop ourselves. We can start to plan and organize ourselves better because now we see the gaps. Now we see the behaviors that aren't serving us. But if we don't pause to start making a plan for how we're going to behave differently, we will just keep reacting to life the way we always have. Because that's what habit is, right? It's a way of your brain conserving energy. So if you do not pause to reorganize your life based on your values and structure your day so the things that you say matter to you actually show up, none of that's ever going to change. You can say that you want to change that, but it'll always just stay a pipe dream. So we move into the practice of organization. And organization is organizing your time, organizing your schedule, organizing your food, all of that.
What do they say? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah. And I have to say, and I tell this to my clients all the time, 20 years into my own practice, I will tell you that the days that I don't pre-think my food, I don't do nearly as good as the days I do. And this is 20 years later.
Yeah.
And so do I plan every day? No. But do I acknowledge that the days that I plan do roll better for me? Absolutely. So I do it more often than not because it's something that I've identified as being very nourishing to me, not just from the food, but from the behavior of planning.
Well, and there's something really freeing about having it planned in advance. So, this is so related and yet unrelated all at the same time. I read an article one time that and I have a friend who does this, where if you wear like the same clothes all the time, you can save all this brain power. Not the exact same clothes, but if you go and buy multiples of the same outfit and then they just wear that, like, have you seen those people? And well,
some of the most successful people in the world do that. They have a uniform. So
yes.
You have to decide.
Exactly. And so imagine doing the same thing with your food where, it doesn't mean that you can't have any variety, but but what your food is, like how much brain power. We're so overwhelmed and taxed. How much brain power would you actually be giving yourself back by planning your food in advance?
Yeah, I call it decision-free living, right? It allows you to live more freely because you've pre-decided some decisions.
That's so much more impactful and effective and efficient the way you just said it than me.
Well, it is decision-free living, but here's the problem with it. And this is why women don't do it. First of all, they have a storyline in their head that's super time-consuming. And I had the same storyline in my head for many years about paying my bills. Like, it takes too much time. I hate doing it. It's awful. It ruins my day, all this stuff. So do you think I sat down to pay my bills on a regular basis? No way. But when I actually finally had to sit down to pay my bills because bills were due, how long do you think it took me? All of 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
And finally I saw that pattern enough that I was like, okay, Courtney, come on. The amount of time it's taking you to pay your bills pales in comparison to the amount of time you are wasting making up this storyline of how hard it is and all the regret and remorse that you have for not having more authority over your finances.
Right. And mine is the post office. If I have something to send you don't ever leave a sweater at my house. Let me just tell you that if you don't live close.
Good to know. Yeah.
because you're not getting it until the next time you come to California. But yeah, it's one of those things that like, oh, and I used to do that with homework when I was a kid and in college. I would spend more time worried about the homework. Oh, I got to do the homework. Then I could have just done the homework.
Yeah. So it's what I call it energy leak. It's like an energy leak. Like it's a time leak. You're wasting all this time telling stories, making up an elaborate storyline when really you could be using planning as a time warrior, which is basically 5 to 10 minutes of just jotting down on a piece of paper what you're going to eat tomorrow. So tomorrow you have removed a ton of decisions from your brain. I read a statistic recently that by noon, an average human has made about 35,000 decisions.
Wow.
Okay. So at the stoplight, do I turn right or left? What do I wear? What am I making for breakfast? What do I have to do? Right. It just starts from the second you wake up. 35,000 decisions by the time we reach noon. And where do you see most people making the worst decisions around food and exercise? In the afternoon and evening.
Oh, yeah.
And that's called decision fatigue, my friends. And it's nothing personal. There's nothing wrong with you. We don't have to have an elaborate storyline. We just need to recognize that humans don't do their best thinking after like noon because your poor little brain is on overload. And so how do we help out the brain? We pre-decide. So I know what I'm having for dinner when I come home tonight because I already pre-decided that this morning.
What are you having?
We're having a Instapot. It's tacos. It's tacos in Instapot. It's super good. It's so easy. Can I tell you just right now?
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
I make a little taco seasoning. So it's like a little oregano, a little paprika, some chili powder, garlic, onion, like the basics that you would have in a taco seasoning. And you can look online to find a taco seasoning. And then I put my chicken breasts in the Instapot. I dump a can of salsa on top with my seasonings, and I turn it on for 14 minutes on manual high. And then I shred it, and my entire family thinks it's like the best thing ever.
That sounds delicious. And then you just have like cheese and lettuce and stuff on the side or whatever.
We have little condiments on the table. And then of course my son likes wraps. And sometimes I'll put my meat over a salad. I might do tacos if I'm feeling in the mood, with my shell. But yeah, it's just so easy. And I also make a ton of it. And this is a tip that I want everyone to hear. Whatever you make for dinner tonight, try to make extra because that's your lunch tomorrow.
Exactly. That's great. And I love the Instant Pot. I'm telling you right now.
Me too.
I'm going to link to one in the show notes if you don't have one. But like, I have to add that you can buy, at least for me, I get the frozen chicken.
Yeah.
The breast at Trader Joe's. And I just open up the bag and I dump it in frozen. Then you only have to put 30 minutes.
Amazing.
And it goes from frozen. I'm like,
the Instapot is a girl's best friend. I am really convinced. It has saved my life, and I cook in it at least 2 or 3 times a week. So yes, I'm a big fan. But we have got to get over the drama of, like if we were going to take a once in a lifetime trip, would we consider not planning for that?
Right.
No. Like, come on, this is your one shot at life. Like, why wouldn't you make a plan for how you're going to rock it?
Right. It doesn't have to be so serious. And so like,
No.
I think some people think if they're organized and they're planning, like you're not spontaneous, but how great is it to have the ability to be spontaneous in other areas because you don't have to use your brain power for this.
Totally.
So this is great. So now we're aware.
Yep.
Now we're organized. What's the next step?
Okay. So we all know those women, and you may be one of them, who we get organized, and it's like we put everything on our calendar and we color code and we get the right pens and the perfect planner. And then we don't show up. We don't follow through. Right? So the next practice is the practice of follow through.
Okay.
Okay. So you made the plan, you got the food, right? You know what you're going to do to move your body today. You know what time you plan to go to bed. Are you going to do it or are you not? That is the question.
Right.
And in many cases, you will decide not to follow through. And I call that rationalizing, negotiating, and compromising yourself out of the work. And the reason we do that 150% because of the way we're thinking. Mm-hmm. The way we're thinking about obstacles that show up in the day, the way we're thinking about our fatigue, the way we're mismanaging our emotions. And so we're not showing up to do the work. And you know what? The best laid of intentions have zero effect if you don't actually do the work.
Yeah. I always say if something's optional, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Right.
I'll just tell you right now, if it's optional, it's not happening.
Totally. And how many of us, actually, like we would never consider not showing up to an important meeting for somebody else or a client call. Like that's just like horrifying to even think of.
Right.
And yet, like, why aren't we the most important client of the day? Right? We should be, and we should be treating ourselves that way, which means we show up regardless of how we're feeling, right? Regardless of what storyline we're telling ourselves in our head, we show up to do the work. And of course, that is largely the work I do with my client base, is helping them to manage emotion and manage thinking so they follow through with more consistency. So the way that I like to think of consistency is this concept of structured flexibility. We have structure and we are a little bit flexible within that structure. Let's just say that you made a fierce commitment. You decided that you are a morning person and you do go to the gym at 5 a.m. every day. But then one day you have a meeting and you obviously decide that you can't do your workout that day. Okay, that is the exception, not the rule.
Right.
But most women are making that the rule, that every day something comes up where I can't work out. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Or the meeting happens and it's like, well, I didn't go yesterday. I might as well not go the rest of the week.
Yeah, there's that. The all or nothing thinking is what
Might as well eat the whole bag.
Totally. That is absolutely all or nothing thinking, which never serves you, right? Because when you don't do anything, like nothing is never going to make any kind of progress. But even if like you had an hour-long workout plan today and you only go for a 20-minute walk, that's something. And a bunch of somethings adds up to some pretty awesome stuff. So
Definitely.
You can definitely modify the plan. That's always an option, but nothing should never be an option.
Unless, you've actually made the decision that day that nothing is the option.
Exactly. Unless you've gone into it with intention, like you have intended to give yourself the grace of just totally taking the day off. It's different than just letting your day take you away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're aware. Now we're organized. Now we're practicing the follow through. What is the final step?
Yeah. The final is almost one of my favorites, which is the practice of realignment. And we alluded to this earlier when we said that, the diet industry kind of fit when they don't do something perfectly on protocol, that they have to start over, whether it's that protocol or they have to start a different plan or find a different guru, right? And I operate from the space that it's not about starting over. It's about realigning yourself with your values and what you said is important to you. Right? So I talk a lot about this concept of integrity pain. Integrity pain is the pain and discomfort that you feel from your actions being misaligned with what you really want for your life. Now, a lot of things cause integrity pain, right? Like we just take a misstep, life throws us a curveball and we get disoriented for a while, make a move across country, we go through a divorce. There's lots of things that misalign us and start to cause this integrity pain. And the quicker that we can start identifying that we are indeed misaligned, the quicker we can realign ourselves. And guess what the healthiest people do? They realign themselves quickly. They don't stay misaligned for months and years and decades. They become very intolerant of not feeling awesome.
Right. Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah. So a great example is, feeling like you're really getting traction with taking better care of yourself, and then you twist your ankle. And then you come up with this award-winning script, this storyline.
I have a feeling this is personal experience, Courtney.
Oh yeah. This award-winning script that there's nothing else you can do, right? Because now you're feeling bad. And because you feel bad, you reach for more food because it makes you feel better, right? Even though it has a long-term consequence. And you tell yourself there's no other exercise I can do, which is a total lie. You could get in a pool, you could get on a bike, you could work your upper body. There's a lot of other options. Right? But we tend to be in this all or nothing space. And so, several months go by and you gain weight and you feel miserable. And yes, your ankle is healed, but now you're totally misaligned. And it's that much harder to get back on track.
Right.
So the main thing that I encourage my clients to think about is that when life throws you a curveball or you get misaligned, extend yourself the grace to gently realign yourself. And to gently realign yourself, you need to ask the question, what simple things can I do that make me feel better? Like if I can't work out today for an hour, can I at least go for a walk? Can I at least even go sit in my backyard and get some fresh air? There's always something you can do. And I just want you to hear here and now that it is a lie to tell yourself that there is absolutely nothing you can do. That's just not true. You could take a deep breath. You could close your eyes and take a 5-minute nap. You could call somebody today and tell them, you know what, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. That's all in dedication to self-care. So my point being that self-care does not always look the same. And we have to be willing to kind of mold our self-care differently as life presents itself, and as we move into different ages and stages of life. Because how I take care of myself in my 40s is a whole hell of a lot different than how I cared for myself in my 20s. Right? But if I was chasing the same methodologies as I was in my 20s, I would be a broken mess.
Right. And I think in our 20s, there were behaviors that I would engage in that were not beneficial to the long run. And I would convince, yeah, I know, shocking. And I would convince myself that, like, oh, I deserve this. And, you know, I'm doing this because I just never really even thought about the long-term consequences. And now I'm like, do I deserve to feel like crap? Like, even take alcohol, like, I don't really want to feel dehydrated in the morning. And I'm talking about with a glass of wine. Like, things do not feel the way they did in my 20s. And so we make decisions no longer like, oh, I'm depriving myself, but like, no, I love myself and I really don't want to feel like crap tomorrow.
Well, realizing now, I think age is really beautiful in that it really makes you more sensitive to the consequences of your actions.
Yes.
And youth, because I do work with women in their 20s, and it's interesting because they often will convince themselves that they're getting away with a certain behavior, right? Because youth is kind of on their side. And I always remind them that, you know, research is kind of showing us that a lot of these chronic illnesses that are developing in our 40s, 50s, and 60s are actually developing in our 20s and 30s.
Right.
So you're not getting away with anything, sister.
Right.
You can tell yourself that, but again, this is that brutal honesty. I truly believe if people go in, they know if something is healthy for them or not. Somebody that may be very nutritious to me in terms of spending time with could be incredibly depleting to you. Right? I can't assume that just because she's healthy for me to be around, she's healthy for you to be around.
Right.
But I feel like that's how people kind of operate in their youth, right? It's just like we get in this mentality that we're getting away with things and that like everything is just a broad stroke, like it's black and white. And as we get older, we just realize that, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And we think we have all this time. So this was years ago, probably 5 years ago. I was on my way to Catalina, which is a little island out of LA, you know, and I went into the bathroom and there were these like really young girls and probably early 20s and obviously came from the beach or whatever. And I looked in the mirror and like my chest from all the sun exposure is just like, if I had known, or in some way I sort of knew, but I actually turned to them and I said, use sunblock. Look at this. I was just like, don't be stupid. You think, oh, it's just a little pink here and there. Like, put your damn hat on and wear some sunblock or you're going to look like this. Like, but you're absolutely right that some of the decisions that we're making, even let's just take the age and stage we're at now. I'm 48. The decisions I make right now are going to make a huge difference when I'm 58 or 68.
100%.
So this isn't just like how much you weigh today or whether you went to the gym. Like, these are long-term decisions we're talking.
It's so true. I think part of what propelled me to stay in this profession and specifically do the work that I do now is I was working with the 40 plus population in my 20s. And so I was exposed firsthand very young to the long-term consequences of certain behaviors, because I saw some women moving through perimenopause and menopause so beautifully. And I saw other women moving through like a tsunami, right? Where it was just like, I mean, and it was terrified me. My mother being one of those people where I was like, oh my gosh, once I'm 40, my life is over, you know? And now that I'm in my 40s, it's like, okay, like it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
And I think I explained this in the first podcast that we did, but I think it's important to reiterate. When we move into perimenopause and menopause, what's happening is, you know, estrogen and progesterone are declining. And you know what estrogen and progesterone are really good at helping us do is manage stress.
Mm.
So now we're living at the most stressful time in our life with the least amount of help from the hormones that help us to balance cortisol. And then we wonder why things are going haywire. And we say to ourselves, like, I don't know what my body's doing. It's just not my own anymore. Right. But it's what I think is so beautiful about perimenopause and menopause is it kind of forces us to look at how we've been managing stress in terms of exercise, sleep, mental stress, all of it.
Right.
Because it affects your hormones. Your hormones are so much more sensitive at that age and stage of life, which we can get really worked up about and really frustrated about, or we can use it as an opportunity to be like, oh, I better treat myself a hell of a lot better if I don't want to continue feeling this way.
And it's an act of self-care, not deprivation or, beating yourself up, but
No.
just honoring yourself, your body, your mind, your spirit.
It is. And really, exercise can very easily be distress in a body that cannot handle more stress. So you give me a woman in her mid 40s who works 14-hour days, who doesn't eat hardly at all because she never makes time to, or the food that she eats has no nutrition in it. Lots of mental stress, never drinks water, drinks lots of alcohol, then tell me that she's going to go through that stage of life gracefully. Like, no way. Or you give her exercise. She comes to, because I've had this exact person many times, say, give me more exercise to do. And I'm like, whoa, sister, the last thing you need right now is more stress. So you can go take gentle yoga. You can go for a swim, go walk your dog. But am I going to tell you to like lean into cardio hard or do heavy weight training? Lord, no. Because I'm only going to create more of a problem. So why don't we work on recovering your system first? Get your hormones balanced, get your energy back, fortify your system before we put more demand on it.
I love that. So these 4 key areas, you guide people through them in your program?
I do. In the consistency code, we spend a week on each of these areas. And I teach an hour, I teach a full session, kind of a master class for each one of those practices. And then I give people a lot of support through podcast episodes and PDFs, and I give them a lot of guidance for how to start implementing those practices. And then we have a lot of coaching calls during the program to keep people accountable, to ask questions, to get support. And I feel so strongly that for every person I work with at this stage of my career, this is the core of what I want them to know, which is why I developed the program.
Yeah. And it's amazing because it sounds to me like this program is not just for those who are trying to start being better at nutrition and movement and all that, but it's really great for anyone, no matter where they are at the stage.
Totally. Because again, health is it's an ongoing practice the rest of your life. So whether you're maintaining or you're trying to improve or you're trying to fine tune, it's all the same stuff.
So it's a 4-week program. People sign up and they work directly with you. You've got these coaching calls. Wait, so I know you had told me before, and this was like blew my mind. In weeks 2 and 3, you actually have a daily coaching call that you offer to people?
We do. I do what's called a planathon, where every day I give you an opportunity. It's in the evening. Which is an opportunity for us to all get on the phone together and do all of our organizing for the next day together. I guide you through it. So I walk you through all the things that we need to put on the calendar, all the things we need to consider. And of course, the emphasis is self-care. And I realize that people have a lot of other commitments and obligations. Like we can't just fully commit to self-care. So I help you work through how to maneuver all of that. And it's not just scheduling the time, but what are you going to do exactly during that time? And I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to help you design what to do based on your own knowing and where you're currently starting.
Right. Because I mean, we could put like workout on our schedule, 7 days a week. And if we don't know exactly.
Again, 20 years into this, and I still, if I have like, okay, workout at 9 a.m. and I go to the gym to work out, I can waste time with the best of them. I will talk to everybody I see, kind of, meandering through some lackadaisical exercise. It just doesn't go well. But if I know that I have these 6 exercises to execute in this time frame, and this is how I want to do them, I'm so efficient and I feel like a rock star.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you also provide, sort of an exercise 101 in your bonuses as far as what people can be doing at home, because I know for me, I have to go to a gym
Yeah.
and I know exactly which class I'm going to be taking each day, and it's like a no-brainer for me, and that's why I show up. But for some people, they want to do it at home, and so you're able to help them sort of make that plan.
I do. I give them some really basic examples of home workouts. And so I give them, some home workouts they can start with. And I give them kind of an introduction to strength training, because I'm a huge advocate of strength training, especially over the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I give people a starting point for sure. And on the coaching calls, people can ask me whatever they need to ask me. So it's really an opportunity to get clarity. If someone really doesn't know what to do tomorrow, I will coach them through that.
Right. I've worked with so many women where I've told them over and over again, like, it's extremely hard to reach a goal or to get better at something if you don't have community,
Yeah.
which you're providing, and accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability is so much of the game, to be able to show up and to say, this is what I'm going to do. And then have someone say, hey, did you do it? I mean, we're especially women over 40, we're so worried about disappointing people. It's like, use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
That, get into a group, get a coach, do the, the consistency code, and get that accountability, because we don't want to disappoint anybody.
It is. It's giving yourself the permission to carve out the time and space. And when you have like a call to show up on, it helps women to start carving out the time. And then when the program is over, usually women are seeing such a benefit to creating the time that they're going to keep up with it.
Exactly. And I love that you're not like, hey, give me 6 months of your time and I'll teach you this. Like, it's a reboot. It's like an ability to really look at what you're doing, set a new plan, put that plan in place, and tweak along the way. It's amazing.
And these are exactly the things that anytime you feel like misaligned or frustrated, these are the 4 practices that realign you. So when my clients get on the phone and tell me what a horrible couple weeks they've had and all these things have happened, I'm like, okay, are you planning? Are you following through? Are you like, we go through all of this and we figure out, like, if they're not showing up to follow through with their plan, why aren't you? If you're not making a plan, it's no wonder why you're not doing the work. So it becomes really crystal clear why we're feeling so out of control when we're not engaging with any of these practices.
Right. I just think that this is a great opportunity. We're in September. The kids are back at school. It's time to really put ourselves first. We've talked about self-care on this show many, many times and in many forms. And I think that self-leadership, like you talk about in the discipline, is such a form of self-care that it's not about like going to get your nails done. It's about being the best you and feeling really good in your body. And I just love that you're providing people an opportunity to work with you in this way that will really give them that boost. And going into the holidays, I mean, I know we don't want to think that the holidays are right around the corner, but how amazing would that be to go into the holidays, like having control over, like, I know what I'm doing, and not allowing everybody else's stuff to get in your way.
For sure. And I'll tell you, the majority of my clientele are women who have built really successful lives in many ways. They have amazing careers. They've built incredible families. They're very high achievers for the most part. And they've gotten to those levels of success in their life by sacrificing their self-care. And what's interesting is that the same things that created the success in the other areas are the same things that will bring success to their health, right? Again, it's that whole self-leadership piece. And so that's really what this course kind of drives home, is it gives you a pathway for starting to develop that self-leadership in the health arena.
And I believe so much in everything. You know this, like, ever since we met, like, if you have something going on, I'm like, please come on and tell my people.
If women listening are really looking for something that's counter to diet culture, like they're really ready to ditch diet culture and really learn how to improve their health or sustain their health in a way that is practical and very personal, right? Because we really honor who you are as a person and where you are and what the complications are of your personal life. It's a very customized approach because you're making the decision. I'm just giving you a pathway for making sure that you're making decisions and that those decisions are in line with what you truly want for your health.
I love it. It's just a great way to finish out 2019 strong.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm a huge supporter of 40 Thrive. So thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being on.
Thank you.
Are you interested in working with Courtney? Check out her free masterclass. She's sharing how behavior change really works so you can reach your health goals with more ease and grace. And if you like what you hear on that, you can continue to work with her. She is absolutely amazing. I cannot say enough. So check out 40thrive.com/episode 38 to connect with Courtney. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked the episode, please consider sharing with a friend. You know the one, she could use the encouragement right now. Until next time, take care and keep thriving.